All right, Daddy's remembered his YouTube password, so we're gonna do another video. This is on more of a serious and like coherent topic, but it's an introduction to video game modding. So if that sounds interesting to you, I guess watch the video. So I'm Captain Moon Unit's X Party, live from the Gase X Command Center, and I'm here to teach you about modding. Also, the current Mongolian Navy has like 5 ships. It's a landlocked country, and they have a navy pretty much just because China tells them to. So I don't really have anywhere to bring that up. So I'm bringing it up here. So now you know about it. Okay. So first off, let's talk about your professor this evening. I'm George H.W. Bush, aka Captain Moon Sex Party, captain of the Sound, aka Senor Doritos, if my other pieces of work. Basically, I do computer programming and got a computer science degree. I don't fucking know. I'm a dumbass. Moving on. Oh, so I got into computer programming with the ulterior motive of, I mean, one, impressing the ladies, of course, but two, learning how to hack Super Mario World better. I was obsessed with it in high school, and that's what kind of got me on this whole path here. So I want to give a shout out to Fu Soya, and he's basically the creator of Lunar Magic, which is an editor program for Super Mario World. This thing has been out almost 20 years, and I have my own Super Mario World ROM hack. And if that sounds interesting to you, I can release it or whatever. But basically, this is how I got my start in programming, game design, level editing, etc. I had a really good time putting together my ROM hack. Um, so, yeah. All right. Now let's jump into the meat of the video. So, first off, let's define what exactly a video game mod is. Obviously, it's short for modification, but in general, it's some sort of like alteration of a game, not done by whoever currently owns it. There are some mods that are done by like previous employees of the company that made the game. Those kind of blur the line, but 90% of the time, it's either a content update or something the community put together. The next thing is that there are a variety of mods, and they kind of depend on the game and a number of different factors. Incriminating evidence. Hold on. Okay, we gotta. Where's the delete key? Okay, all right. Pretend you didn't see that. I'll pay you some money or something. Just don't. If you see a Fed, tell him you don't know me. Okay. All right, got it. Good. Right. So let's get the slideshow back up. Um, so there are several different types of mods. And sadly, there are no mods to my knowledge that make Todd Howard smoke weed, but somebody familiar with Skyrim mods should get on that. But anyways, let's run through the types of mods, and this is by no means exhaustive, but these are some of the most common ones that I've witnessed between various different games. So you have graphics mods, things that insert new characters or totally redo the world or make an old game look a lot better on modern systems. There's a pretty good variety there. Next, and this takes place most commonly in competitive multiplayer games, is game balance mods, right? Nerf that fox, make him more balanced, or buff that Pichu, make Pichu more scary, stuff like that. Granted, game balance is largely subjective, and I've witnessed many arguments from many different games about it. But in general, the goal for these mods is to drive the game towards more of a competitive fairness angle as much as possible. Next, we have mods that add in new content, factions, partners, whatever. These tend to fall under the umbrella of expanding the game in some cool and meaningful ways. So some mods have like new content for the game, so that means like new levels, new quests, whatever. Other mods, particularly if it's like a RTS or a strategy game, will add new factions into the game. Think Civ. I've never said it out loud, but Lake mod. So Civ 5 has Lake mod, and that adds, I don't know, it brings the count of civilizations up to like 90, which is mind blowing. Um, and then new NPCs and partners within the game. Again, I'm thinking Skyrim there, adding in like Thomas the Tank Engine, Dagoth, shit like that. So, next up, and I don't know how this got there. We have bug patching, uh, Bethesda, essentially working kinks out of the game that the company that made the game just didn't get around to fixing or didn't have the resources to. Generally, if you're in a AAA industry, there's a lot of pressure to do microtransactions or move on to the next project as opposed to essentially perfecting an existing one, right? You already got your money's worth out of Skyrim. Like, they milked the shit out of Skyrim. But to be fair, Skyrim is great. Okay, so next, we have mods that allow you to do new levels and or maps in your game. These also are kind of a form of new content, but I put it in its own category because it's fairly different. A lot of games don't come with level editors. Think Super Mario World. So when you give people a level editor, that opens up a ton of possibilities and a ton of creativity. Look at the long list of Super Mario World hacks. There's so much cool stuff there. Next is adding quality of life features. So I would say the big one for this would be Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Horns of the Abyss, as well as HD Mod. Those two together allow you to do kind of common tasks in the game a lot quicker. They make essentially splitting stacks of troops around or moving them makes it a lot quicker, makes it a lot easier. And again, that's kind of the name of the game with any kind of quality of life mod. Um, and I would say interface mods definitely kind of fall under this umbrella. Um, I love Morrowind, but I get that the interface is a little dated, and a lot of people essentially transform the Morrowind interface into something a little more akin to Skyrim. Not exactly. Don't actually me in the comments. Uh, I'm incredibly drunk right now, so make that of what you will. You will. Right. Next, we have one of my personal favorites, meme nonsense. So this is just I'm fucking adding an inside joke from the community into the game. Think fucking really anything with Dagoth and Morrowind or Thomas the Train Engine in Skyrim or really just anything involving Dagoth. He is, so let me explain, this is a tangent, but this is a worthwhile one. The final boss of Morrowind, spoilers if you care about a 20-plus-year-old game, is a naked dark elf in nothing but a loincloth and a mask dancing in a volcano. And just, he's the final boss of the game. His design is absolutely gorgeous. And I have like zero notes, right? He has a grand and intoxicating innocence about him. Again, naked elf dancing in a fucking volcano, talking about destiny and shit. That just, what the fuck? Also, when I first like saw him, I wasn't looking for the end boss. I just totally tripped upon him, and I was like peeing my pants as a kid. I was like, "Oh my god, this guy is gonna wreck me," and that's exactly what happened. Morrowind is scary at times. But anyways, so next, and these kind of take a lot of work, so you need a good community for this. There are certain mods that'll make the game into a whole new game. I think there was like the Age of Empires 2 Chivalry mod that totally transformed the units and the assets within the game, and it played like a kind of a totally different RTS. Um, I think that mod at this point is pretty defunct. What with the advent of Microsoft basically hired the Forgotten Empires modders, and I feel like that took steam out of modding, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong with that. I don't. The age mods I do tend to be just kind of different shit than that. So, anyways, so next let's talk about what makes a good candidate for modding. What games are really likely to get modded? Also, I included a tortoise eating some lettuce. I want him to grow up big and strong and be a nice tortoise, and I want him to outlive me by like 5 centuries. These little cute guys, they live a long time. You know what I'm saying? Um, they like found a tortoise in like Florida that has like a fucking like bullet from the Civil War lodged in its shell, right? And that's the fucking Civil War that happened like 2 decades ago, bro. Like what the fuck? All right. Anyways, so what's a good candidate for modding? First off is the general age of the game. The longer the game has been out, the more time people have had to really kind of figure out how the game ticks and how to start toying around with it. Next, the popularity of the game. Is there a really established community for that game individually or that series? Are people like the more liked the game is, the more willing people are to put in the time to figure out how to mod it and also create their own mods, whatever that might look like. Next, the age and the size of the audience. The bigger the audience, the more people are kind of like dissecting the game. The other thing is that the age of the game matters quite a bit, at least given that this gets into some generational bullshit or whatever. But in general, the younger you are, down to about like 10, the more likely you are to understand how technology kind of ticks. I, again, no shade at 90-year-olds. They have lived a full life, and I'm sure they're very smart and wonderful, but they just didn't grow up with this nonsense. And same goes for, them elementary school kids. No shade at them. Whatever. Fucking, chase your crush around the fucking playground or fucking throw sand at people. I'm not talking from experience, whatever. Um, but in general, 5-year-olds, I don't think have had enough time to learn how fucking computers and games works and software. I'm sure they will if they want to someday. Everybody can be a developer or fucking whatever. I'm off on a tangent. But basically, is the audience of the right age to understand how to put a game together, how to disassemble it, right? Next, popularity of the console matters quite a bit. Um, and generally, like the big consoles like PlayStation 2 or the Super Nintendo, those tend to get the most modding support. The other thing here, though, um, that somewhat kind of streamlines this process is PC. PC is just inherently easier to mod. So if a game is on PC, it's like 20 times more moddable than on a console. They put a lot more restrictions on what you can do on a console. And the thing is that there's like Moore's Law where like processing power goes up pretty regularly. And again, that gives PC a big edge, right? Next, we have competitive games. These are your Smash Brother Melees or Hero 3s or Dotas or fucking what's the other one? League of Legends, right? These are games that people spend and sink a lot of time into. They understand the characters, they understand the play and counterplay, and they have like tier lists figured out and kind of argue over different parts of the meta. um, Again, that kind of dissection is really really useful for modders. If I see somebody in like triple S tier and then everybody else is like down in A tier, that's like kind of a glaring like, oh shit, okay, let's maybe bump this triple S down or bring the A tier up, right? um, So I would say that's pretty important for modding a game. Next, we have the Easter Bunny dropping eggs in a helicopter, just fucking yeeting them at children. That bunny's got an arm like a cannon, you know what I'm saying? There was like one time I was playing dodgeball. I like dodged the ball, but then the kid that was fucking throwing at me, he had an arm like a hammer. Uh, 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 he just hit me in the face. I went down, and then he just fucking sniped me in the face again. God damn, I don't know what became of that kid. He was cool though. Uh, I thought it was hilarious. Once the brain damage, um, right, brain damage. So let's kind of talk about further factors for a game being modded. First off, you have the tools available, and this kind of goes a little bit with the age of the game. Have people figured out the system? Have people figured out the individual game? Um, Generally speaking, that goes back to kind of what I mentioned with the age of a system or the age of a game or a console. Do people outside of the original developers understand it well? Next, kind of as I kind of poked at before, we have the age of the console. The longer the console's been out, more time people have had to figure out everything going on with it. Next, one big factor is the accessibility. So it's the accessibility of the game as well as what platforms it's on. If it's $120 Super Nintendo game, Chrono Trigger with a fucking box and everything, yeah, it's not very accessible. Chrono Trigger's only been released twice in you know in history or fucking whatever. Whereas Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I have run that game on I have a fucking toaster. It doesn't even have a goddamn like processor in it, but I have played Heroes on a fucking toaster, and I fucked your mom with said toaster and Heroes in Minecraft. Oh shit, I'm not beating the allocation. Okay. Anyways, next let's talk location. So this means kind of like geographical location. What computers are available in said country? What games do people like to play in said country? So a good example of this is Vietnam is a little bit behind in computing power, so they tend to play games from kind of older generations. There is a very thriving Age of Empires 1 community that's still going strong to my knowledge in Vietnam. Whereas in the US, people have more powerful computers, and they kind of moved on to the souped up version of AoE 2. Oh, the other thing is Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So this is an interesting case. In the States, in the US, Heroes came out, everybody fucking loved it, but by like 2006, interest from the original community, the original English community, kind of started to peter out a little bit. But that's actually right when a lot of trade embargoes with US and Russia ran out. So Russia picked up Heroes 3 and 5, fell in love with it, and they kind of have bred a community that is still very active to this day. That community has not had time for it to like die out as much. Um, Fuck Ubisoft, by the way. Unrelated. It is very related. But anyhow, next, ease of emulation. This kind of ties back into accessibility, but essentially, especially if it was a console only game, you're going to face more hurdles of emulating it. And emulation is going to vary per the console. Super Nintendo, completely accurate to how the console is. PlayStation 2, you got to do a shitload of extra stuff to get it working. N64, people still struggle to emulate those games. The way early 3D consoles were put together, consoles and games, was really janky. They were like hacking into existence. They didn't really had a good pattern for like large scale software, 3D software systems at the time. We have like Unity and Unreal now. So N64 games struggled to be emulated a lot more. And the last factor I wanted to mention is console limitations. So a good example of this is the NES can only display roughly 13 colors at once. And as you can imagine, right, that limits the different kinds of sprites and different kind of colors you can put into the game. You got to get really creative at getting the most out of those 13 colors. Whereas the Switch, yeah, no, yeah, every color, whatever, however many colors you need. Like fucking, you want fucking space purple, you want goddamn orange melon. I don't fucking know what you do. I don't know what you generates. You fucking listen to my dumbass rambling, so I gotta don't insult your audience. That's what my therapist told me not to do. God damn it. Okay, anyways, console limitations. Uh, you can figure out your way around them, but that's tricky. So, I always like to end off with a word of the day, and this comes from our good pal Dick Cheney. Um, and the word is flaxe dinace nihila pileficashan. I don't know what the fuck that is. I dare you to Google it. I dare you to, this isn't copy pastable. So fucking you gotta type it out yourself. Go Google it, figure out how to say it, figure out what the fuck it is. Because I ain't got time for that. But yeah, this has been Dick Cheney's word of the day. Next, we'll kind of just run through this quick. We got the types of modding tools, and this kind of goes in line with the types of mods that get made. So first you got your level creator, make new maps, make new dungeons, whatever. Next, you have your art editor or inserter in the case of older systems. Again, console limitations meant that you had a sprite sheet that was a certain dimensions, and that's it. That's all the space you got. Whereas today, it's more, yeah, you can just edit and insert shit however much you want. It's pretty straightforward. Next, we have the data modifier slash table editor. This is good for just taking and changing any variables within the game. I would say the big example I have for this, particularly for the table editor portion, is that there is a mod of Might and Magic 6, 7, and 8 that combines them all. And it has a table editor that lets you essentially change a number of different things, but most importantly, the skills that all the classes had. That's hella fun, right? Doesn't that get your brain spinning on like, oh man, I could create all these cool different classes, right? And give them different skills and all this shit. So that opens up a lot of possibilities there. Next, we have the hex editor. This is where you're going in and editing the actual ones and zeros for games. Modern games, you don't really need to do this as often, but older games where they're much lower level, much closer to essentially machine assembly, low level languages, uh, this is a lot more relevant. And a lot of what's been done with Mario World has come from hex editing directly, ASM mods essentially. Next, you have kind of working with the music library. Modern games, I think you can kind of insert whatever you want, but older games they were constrained to what the console sound chip would let them do. Excuse me. And or sound font that the game had. Sound font just basically means the type of sounds that a game would have. Think of it as just like a sound library or music library. Next, tools of relatives. So this is just more of a general category, but essentially, uh, ROM hacking for Mario 3 is relevant for ROM hacking of Super Mario World. They use the same engines, right? So if I'm able to crib off of other games within the same engine, it doesn't take a lot to kind of like take and tweak those tools. So yeah, My concussion's really bad or something, but I'm making a fucking video game, and I just kind of ran through what aspects of uh, uh, modding games are and what some of the variables that come into play with this. My goal is to kind of make a unified theory of modding, um, but we'll see if yeah, we'll see if my brain will let me do that. Oh yeah, making a game is like a card game is fine. You fight off a horde of enemies and stuff. It's pretty good. I'll put the link in the bibliography if that sounds interesting to you. Also, if there's interest, I'll continue this series. There's a couple of other modding topics I would like to cover. Uh, so yeah, that's about it. Make sure you sit down with one of your loved ones and call them a hoe today, and don't pee in inappropriate places. All right, that's all I got.